Welcome everyone to another new week of the CFO Swinger Watch. All right, let's go ahead and start with the overall markets. So SPY is looking pretty good. Last week, the last half of last week, we saw a lot of good consolidation. Do you guys see how we have these three red candlesticks? So whenever I see this type of trend, this usually tells me that there will be a fourth candlestick that will be green. So this is a very healthy pullback, especially when we have three back-to-back consecutive red candlesticks for a little tiny pullback. Now, if you take a look at the 2-hour time frame, we're seeing a nice bullish flag as well. Now, of course, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but if we do reject off of this descending level of resistance, this trend line here, there's a good chance that we retest the 449.50 low that we did on Friday. And then if we decide to break below the 449.50 level, there's a good chance that we can come all the way back down to my next level, which is sitting around 443 to around 442.80. So watch out for any type of big selling that may go on if we decide to reject off of this descending trend line. Okay, so that's basically what you need to be watching out for. If we decide to break above it, however, we're going to have to retest the 456.50 level, which is, let me remind you guys, very, very important because we saw a double top here. All right, so if we decide to reject off of 456 and then go down, I wouldn't be surprised because 456.50 is a heavy level of resistance. And you guys see how we broke above it once and it came immediately back down, right? So buyers were completely out and sellers came in right away once we decided to come back up and pop above 456.50 just once, okay? So watch out for that level. And if you decide to break above that again, there's a good chance we can come back all the way up to 464 and 465. Okay, so next one is IWM. I want to look at this name because small caps have been very, very strong. All right, so if we just compare SPY, all right, and then IWM. Look how strong it is already, right? Just visually, IWM looks stronger. And for the fact that on Friday, it bounced a lot better compared to SPY. And on IWM, it made a low, okay, that wasn't too far away from the previous low day on this candlestick, so on Thursday. So we can see some momentum picking up here, especially since this is the time as well where small caps start to see a lot of money inflow rather than an outflow, as it usually sees. So, in the next 2 months or so, we may see a lot of small cap stocks making a nice bounce or continuation to the upside. And I expect IWM to come back and stay above this huge yearly range that we made back in 2021. So once we're able to come back above 210 and stay above 210, there's a good chance that we can start ranging again, right? As we bounce at 210 and then reject around 227-ish to around 228, right? So continue to watch out for IWM. QQQ. So QQQ, same story with SPY. Okay, we're seeing a nice flag here, a nice retest of the 10 SMA as well, right? And we saw a nice bounce near the end of the day on Friday. So take a look at the 2-hour time frame here, right? I mean, this looks exactly similar to SPY. So I have the same thesis on QQQ because of SPY, but at the same time, you must remember that QQQ has been a lot weaker than SPY. So if we do have a nice pullback, I'm going to expect a bigger price range pullback compared to SPY. And if we start pulling back, and if we break below 360 and eventually 357.8ish to around 358, there's a good chance we come back all the way down to 351.50. And if you break that support level, all right, it's a straight shot down to 341. Okay, so there's a lot of support down there that we can touch while we have a lot of hard resistances to the upside. So if we decide to reject from this flag, okay, this descending flag, we will see a lot of sellers coming back in because the path to least resistance is the downside, especially when we have a lot of support here. So, if you take a look at the weekly time frame, all right, there is a lot of sellers that came in on the weekly candlesticks as well, especially when we decided to retest the weekly 21 SMA, okay, and the 369 to 370 resistance level that we've been watching on the broader time frames. All right, so let's take a look at our first name, BLL. So we had this name on our watch list last week. Now, it didn't do much last week except go down, right? So it rejected off of this descending level of resistance, this trend line here. If you take a look at the 2-hour time frame, right? It seems like we're kind of ranging between this descending trend line and the support around 89 to 90. So now on Friday, we did close below $90 and 89.50-ish. So what I expect from here is that we continue to the downside as all the major SMAs here, if you guys can see clearly, it's coiling right here, right? They're all entangled with each other. So at some point, we're going to see all these SMAs starting to cross one another to the downside because first of all, you guys can clearly tell that the 10 and 21 momentum SMAs, right, the short-term momentum SMAs are curling to the downside, while the 50 and 200 are relatively stable. So eventually, as the price goes lower, okay, as the price goes lower, we will see most, if not all, the SMAs that are on here moving to the downside and supporting the price lower by making sure that the SMAs act as a level of resistance against the price. So, $90 was probably the best entry to short last week, but if it did not get in, I would wait for a break of this overall, switch the weekly time frame, this ascending support trend line. Okay, and so that could happen around $88 to maybe around 87.50-ish. But depending on how this week goes, I would say $88 would be a good entry to short, especially if we decide to break below this ascending support trend line. Okay, so next we have is laser. So I know you guys remember this name. We had a great return back in 2021 in November, and we had that great news, and the stock jumped all the way up to around like $24 here. So I'm waiting for some type of news again. But laser here is looking absolutely incredible, right? It's making a nice descending channel here as it's starting to base. So it's doing the same thing that it did last time here, right? And so obviously it's a lot cheaper, okay? But as it's making lower highs and lower lows here, we're making a descending channel, which is essentially a bullish chart pattern. So after making a nice bounce at around $12, which was a lot of buyers came in, and it was a very good support. We bounced on top of it multiple times here. So buyers really want to hold this $12 level. And as we're bouncing at the $12 level, we are seeing a retest of this descending resistance. Now we retested it 3 times here. If you guys know the 3 golden rule, if we retest a specific price level 3 times, we tend to break out of it, right? So maybe this week, okay, maybe this week we will be able to see a breakout above this descending level of resistance. And if you look at the 2-hour time frame, we've been flagging since last week, all right, most of last week, right below this descending level of resistance. So if we're able to break above $16, specifically 16.20, we should see a significant breakout and upside move. However, you guys need to be careful of this 200 SMA that's been creeping along, right? As the price is starting to consolidate and get tighter and tighter and tighter. So this will prove as a major level of resistance as an SMA, right? As a 200 SMA. So if you decide to break above that, there should be a nice euphoric move to the top side, especially if there's news combined as well. If there's a specific catalyst that makes the price break out harder. Okay, so the last name here is GIS. So last week we decided to revisit this one, right? And it was good that we revisited because this is making higher highs and higher lows. And expect it to continue that way because we saw a lot more buying coming in than we saw right here, right? And you may be wondering, wait a second, the volume is not telling us that, right? However, the price is telling us that, right? So in these moments, the price precedes the volume here because the price is telling us that, oh, there must be a lot more buyers. But if the volume is low, that means there isn't much interest. And in that little interest, there's still a lot more buyers compared to sellers. And for the fact that we've come back into this very, very nice bull flag, okay, as seen on this weekly time frame, and for the fact that we broke above it last week with a nice bullish candlestick here on the weekly time frame, just tells us that there's a good chance we can start moving to the upside and ultimately above $70, which should give us that all-time high price range that we've been looking out for since last month. Okay, so that's it for GIS and all the equity names I want to watch for this week, especially the main equity names. You do have a lot of technical setups that I've given you guys. I think there's around 13. So make sure you guys take a look at that, choose which ones you guys want to trade, and obviously set up your alerts. All right, so the cryptocurrency pick that I gave you guys last week was Solana or SOL. And you guys see how well it did. So hopefully you guys got in just like me. I got in a little bit earlier, around 106 to around 107, but I also added at 110 as well, since that was the break for confirmation of a reversal. Okay, so after it broke 110, it absolutely went bonkers. Okay, and now it's sitting at 135. So I will tell you guys to continue to watch this, because if you decide to flag underneath 135, as we're seeing already, there's a lot of selling pressure just by looking at these wicks, right? And for the fact that we're in the vicinity of the 200 SMA on the daily time frame. So continue to watch out for this name, because if we start flagging, and if you guys don't remember, this looks exactly, oops, go. Let's just back from Korean. So if you remember ADA, right? Just like ADA, all right, I expect SOL to flag like this as well. Now, Sol here is seeing a lot more resistance here. Okay, so if we decide to come back down and retrace about half of this movement here, I wouldn't be surprised as well. But hopefully and ideally, we can make a flag that we saw here on ADA, right? Because ADA is making a nice bullish pennant, right? So if you guys want to see a little bit more visual, okay, let me make a nice quick drawing here for you all, right? It's a very nice bullish pennant. So that's exactly what I want to see on Sol. And if you don't, then we will most likely see a retracement about half of this move here and potentially retest this 10 SMA and bounce off of it, which will also give you guys a nice, cheaper buying the dip opportunity there. Okay, so that's it for this week. Good luck, and make sure you guys set up your alerts, respect your entries, respect your stop losses, respect your price targets. All right, have a great rest of your trading week. I'll see you guys next week.